have a look at it again as they go through the presentation. So probably without further ado, I'll hand you over to Pádraig if Pádraig is there. Yeah, Pádraig. Pádraig, you okay? Yeah, Pádraig, raise that. Go ahead there now. Grant. Yeah, I need a man after doing it there. Okay. Oh, well.
Okay, Q, ready to go? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm after introducing your own background and all and things like that. So you didn't hear it; you were on mute. So
I missed all that. Yeah, that's
you can tell them all yourself there anyway.
Listen, no, thanks. First of all, thanks to Q for the invitation to come along tonight and present, and thanks everybody for dialing in. I hope you can pick up a couple of ideas tonight that might help you go back to your own clubs and grow and develop them, and develop your community. I put together this presentation which will take a look at the importance, first of all, of attracting new people to your club. We'll focus in on maybe younger players later on it, but clubs are really made up of people, and without those people and without volunteers, our clubs won't be able to function, won't be able to play the games, and without games then we won't be able to attract children. So how do we get people to join our club and get involved? What are the barriers? What can we do to help? First of all, we take a look at the bigger picture and what is the role of the club and the people in it. And then I'll look at the issues around attracting people to the club. And I'll finish up then with some practical examples that I've used in my own sort of work with Crokes over the last 20 years. I think we're going to take questions at the end, but if you has any questions during it, maybe if you want to jump in and give me you can butt in or join in at any stage and ask a question.
Right.
Our session objective, so by the end of the session, I hope you'll have a clearer definition of volunteering. We'll examine the role of volunteers in the club setting. We'll look at the reasons why people volunteer and probably the reasons why they don't. We'll also look at strategies on how clubs can attract volunteers and hold on to them. And then we'll look at the different phases of the player pathway and examine what clubs can do to attract new players and members as they go through the pathway in the club. So quickly, what is volunteering? Volunteering is defined as the commitment of time and energy for the benefit of society and community, the environment or the individuals outside of one's own immediate family. It's undertaken freely and by choice without concern for financial gain. If we look now at the GAA in terms of what the GAA mission is or what their vision is, and especially what their values are, we can see the importance of volunteering, and I suppose everybody knows that the GAA is built foremost on a voluntary effort. So the mission of the GAA is, GAA is a community-based volunteer organisation promoting Gaelic games, culture and lifelong participation. And I'm conscious that we'll have people from the LGFA and from Camogie, and I think we're well down the track now. Certainly the Dublin clubs would work off the one club model where all three associations are under the one umbrella of the club. And I think from a national level, all three associations are working towards that end where it's the one Gaelic Games family and the one Gaelic Games organisation. So I just took the GAA end of it tonight and the mission and the values and the overall mission of the organisation. Again, when you look into the mission, they talk about being a volunteer organisation and they talk about the communities that we serve. And then when you look at the vision, the vision is that everybody has an opportunity to be welcomed. So if we look at those things that are highlighted in red there, community-based, the communities that we serve, it's a volunteer organisation and everybody has the opportunity to be welcome to take part. The GAA values, and again, the importance of values these days is that all our actions and words should reflect what our values are. And if we're true to our values with our actions and our words, we shouldn't go too far wrong. And when we make decisions as we go along, if those decisions are based on sound values and sound principles, it should help guide us to where we want to go. So when you look at the GAA values, again, community identity is strong, amateur status is strong, inclusiveness is strong, respect is a key value, player welfare is a key value, and then teamwork is a key value as well. So again, just quickly some of those things. I think inclusiveness as a value, I think we've started on a journey with that in Croke Park over the last couple of years. There's been a diversity and inclusion officer appointed. And one of the first things that they developed, and it was through one of the parents in Kilmacud Crokes helped them on this journey with the Fun and Run Pack. And the Fun and Run Pack was an initiative and an idea that allowed kids with additional needs or physical disabilities or just additional needs to join in, would say in a summer camp setting or in a team setting. And it was a game devised then to be inclusive and to be, easily played by all the members of our community. That was one sort of big, I suppose, development in terms of inclusiveness. We all know the diversity as well in the GAA and in our communities, and the range of nationalities and backgrounds that people have. And I think the GAA has still a bit to go on that. And I think clubs can do a little bit more in terms of reaching out to different ethnicities and different sort of backgrounds of people in a way to try and sort of break down the barriers to those people getting involved, or people from different countries. I don't know if you've seen I think it was the Tommy Tiernan show a couple of weeks ago, and Zach Maradi, who plays at a local club up here in Dublin, Thomas Davis, but he was a refugee from Iran and ended up in Leitrim, and through the GAA he got involved in his local community and started playing the games, and that was a way of him and his family sort of connecting with the community that they're in and being a part of it. And he's since gone on to play inter-county hurling with Leitrim, and it's a very good story. In terms of respect, I think we all know that give respect, get respect, which has been a big push over the last number of years, and you can see it at half time in Croke Park in games. It's also part of coming to Munsko, and it's part of the underage. And I suppose player welfare, that it's all about the player, and then if we're making decisions, that as long as the player is at the centre of those decisions, we won't go too far wrong. So again, behaviours, actions and words should reflect our values and the values of the overall organisation. I know clubs then, have done their own strategic plans and come up with their own values, sort of linked in with their own community. The last one there, there's no strength without unity and effective teamwork. So what makes up a successful club? And again, I've already mentioned that clubs are more so about people than bricks and mortar or pitches, or we all know stories of clubs which have fabulous facilities but maybe are struggling on the ground itself in the day-to-day, putting teams out on the pitch and so on. So the true measure of a club is the people and the people in it, and the amount of, voluntary effort that goes in. So we look at people, we look at games, and certainly in a GAA context, the schools are so important, and I'll link in with that later on. But if we talk about people, we talk about volunteers. They come from the local community. They make up committees and the support personnel within a club. It's up to the club then, when they get volunteers in, that they upskill them and put them through a training. And there's a lot of training on offer by the 3 associations. Certainly from a coaching point of view, there's a lot of coaching courses. There's a lot of coaching backup through the county boards, but also in terms of club development and officer training and so on. If you look on the GAA website, you'll see lots of resources for that. And if people are willing to give up their time and commitment and take up a role as an officer in a club, the training is there to help them do the best job possible. Again, fundraising is a big part of clubs, and without that fundraising, clubs won't be able to function. They won't be able to put on the facilities. They won't be able to provide the opportunities for children to play the games or go play matches. So fundraising is a big part, and I don't know where I heard it, but there was always sort of a saying that I heard growing up, that a club was only sort of happy or only functioning when they had a big debt that they had to clear. So they're after investing a lot of money in their facilities or pitches or clubhouse or whatever, and then the whole club rose behind sort of clearing that debt and fundraising And, you know, I've seen examples of that in my old club up in Monaghan, where, you know, people go door to door selling tickets across the county and into other counties, and, you know, giving up a lot of time to sort of clear the debts that were associated with that. Our games. So in order to develop our club, we need to provide games, and we need to provide quality coaching sessions to develop our games. We need to develop a quality games program in conjunction with the county board, and outside of the games program, you know, making sure the kids have enough games that they can develop as players. So whether that be organising blitzes and tournaments in your own club, or going travelling and playing other blitzes or trips down the country. Quality coaches, better coaches make better players. So clubs have to invest in developing their coaches and setting up the structures and support structures to do that. They need to base their games program, their coaching program, on sound coaching and development principles. And all the stuff that they do has to be age appropriate. And again, back to the facilities, we need quality facilities. I've already said that, you know, there's lots of clubs where maybe the facilities are top class, but they don't have the people to back that up, or they don't have the volunteer effort to back that up, and things sort of fall and slide. But if you have people and facilities working together, well, that's well on the way to being a successful club. And then inclusion, fairness and equality, that everybody's treated equally and everybody's treated fairly, and that we're as inclusive as possible and welcoming to all members of our society. And then schools, it's no secret that I suppose the GAA has always been sort of backboned with the work that's gone on in primary schools, the work that teachers have done in promoting the game over the years, primary schools and secondary schools. And again, GAA clubs, I suppose, have been to the forefront of linking in with schools. I think it's no secret that the most successful counties and the most successful clubs are the ones that have that link, and they've developed a very strong link between the local club and the local school. And it's a two-way thing. The school benefits from it because kids are active outside of school. They're playing in a local club. Normally, if it's a GAA ethos school, they're playing in Cumann Munskull, and if the kids are playing in a local club, it's easier to field teams in the Cumann Munskull, and I suppose the effort is reciprocated on both sides. I'll talk in a few slides about how we use, and certainly Crokes and certainly most of the Dublin clubs use the local primary schools as recruitment and tapping in and sort of linking in the junior classes with our nurseries, and how important that is in terms of building a big base at the bottom of players coming into the club. The coaching and games link, I suppose the GPO part of that, you know, going in sort of supporting the local club and linking the schools to the local club. Schools are obviously a strong part of the community, and it's another sort of sign that you have a strong functioning community where everybody's working together. A lot of the time it's shared facilities where the local club is working and sharing facilities, and again, you know, schools are coming down to the local club and using the facilities during the day, and then the club has it that evening. Okay. So we now look at volunteers, and I suppose later we'll talk about player-specific stuff about getting more players into your club. But certainly at underage, if you don't get the volunteer effort to go with young players coming in, you won't have the manpower to do the job, the best job possible. So we'll take a little look at the volunteer ethos and why people volunteer, and I suppose. You know, I think this came from a GAA sort of volunteer workshop in County Kildare a couple of years ago, and the answers are revealing. Some of the reasons why people volunteered was because they were asked first and foremost. Somebody asked them. A lot of the time, people weren't asked. Other time it's tradition. It's they grew up in with a GAA in the family, and they feel that, you know, they're part of the local club, and they feel that they need to give something back to it because they've got something out of it, maybe in their own upbringing. People move into a new area and want to get to know the community, and because the GAA is such a strong part of most communities, that the easiest way to tap in is to get involved in your GAA club. A lot of people volunteer because they enjoy it. It keeps them busy, it keeps them occupied. They make and keep friendships, so it could be a group of friends joining together, getting involved because their children are getting involved, and you build up a social network, and you build up a group of friends that, that you spend time with, and then you enjoy spending time in their company, and the beneficiaries of that is the club, because the work has gone into the club. And a lot of people probably join because their children joined and they got involved in coaching that way, and follow their own child through, going through with a team. Some people wanted to give something back after their playing career ended, and again, feeling that they've benefited from their involvement in the club or in the GAA, and they want to make sure that is given on to the next generation or people that come behind them. They want to be associated with something positive and successful. Again, if you look at stuff like the theory of needs, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, about what do people want in their life, after food and shelter, they want to belong to something, they want to be part of something bigger, they want to be related to something that maybe is successful and that is vibrant and is a strong part of the community. And again, that links into joining a club. There was a big GAA sort of marketing campaign, I think, last year, and it was all about that word belong, and sort of promoting why belonging to something and belonging to a GAA club was so important. Why do people not volunteer? So when you go to ask somebody to get involved, what are the reasons maybe that they're afraid or they don't volunteer? So the first question, or the biggest reason, was that they weren't asked. So they were not asked, and that's why they didn't get involved. They sort of were happy enough to sit on the sideline. They felt that they didn't have the skills required. Another big one is they'll be overburdened with the work and they'll never escape from it. And I think that's important, that when we do ask people to get involved, that we are specific about what we ask them to do, and we nearly give them a job spec, and we give them a sort of this is all we're asking you to do. If you can do this, we're happy, and that's it. And we'll talk about that in a couple of slides. Some people don't have the confidence or the time or the interest. Again, if they don't have the interest, that's fine. But if it's a case of confidence or time, again, we can work around that. When I talk about my experiences in Crokes, we'll talk about sort of the nursery and the numbers coming in at the nursery in Crokes, but also the background of people. I suppose the area that we're in, it's a relatively sort of new. Sort of the GAA, I suppose, success is relatively new. It's only over the last 25 years, 20 years. So we still get a lot of people getting involved now with their children and stuff, who maybe don't come from a traditional GAA background or never played the game. And if we looked, it could be anything up to 70% of the parents getting involved at an age group would not have a GAA background or not have played the games. And by and large, we find that as a bonus, because they're sort of coming with fresh eyes, and they're open to new ideas, and they're sort of opening in their outlook in terms of what you're asking them to do in terms of coaching. And once you set them up with solid coaching skills and solid coaching principles, and they bring their own sort of personal qualities to it, I think we've been huge beneficiaries of that. Another reason why people don't volunteer would be clubs don't sell themselves, or they don't let it be known that there's roles for people, or that there's people needed to help. So a little bit on marketing, a little bit on PR, a little bit on maybe using social media and that, just to get the message out that you're welcoming, that there's a place for people, and that you're looking for help. Sometimes a club might have a poor image, and that takes a bit of work to try and work through. It could be a legacy thing or a historical thing, and it mightn't be the fault of the current generation, it might be previous generations, but maybe it's up to the current generation to try and work through that, and to get a better image of the club out there. And then some people don't know about the GAA or the local club. Again, that comes, we found out that sometimes that's a bonus when they're coming and they don't have a background in GAA. Maybe they have a background in another sport and they're bringing a different skill set. But as long as they come with enthusiasm, with open eyes, and with a willingness to work and volunteer, I think most of the time we've been very successful with that. Okay, so encouraging people to volunteer. So again, the club must be seen as a couple of things in this. There must be a positive image of the club, and if there's a negative image out there, it's something that the club might have to work through and try and promote. And promoting with good stories, and anytime you want to get a message out there, it's good to tell a story. So if there's any good stories in the club, It's by use of websites, by use of Twitter, by use of social media, by telling that story and relating that story, I think people get probably a more positive image of the club. The club must be open and welcoming. It must be seen as an energetic place full of enthusiastic people and full of activity. There's nothing better than driving through Stillorgan on a bright evening, and there's they've knocked down the big walls. You actually can see into the pitch now from the main road out beside the shopping centre in Stillorgan. And on a summer's evening or during the mini All-Irelands, when you're driving past, it's nothing but colour and lots of people and lots of kids and noise, and that attracts people. Now that the people can see that and can hear that, you have a far better chance of them walking in off the main road and having a look and coming inside the gate and seeing what's going on and seeing the activity. And if they have a young family or if they have young kids in the neighbourhood and they weren't aware of the club before, that's a great sort of first sort of image for them to get of your club. Making a positive and major contribution to community, and I suppose that came through very strongly in the current lockdowns and the previous lockdowns. Like most clubs, Kilmacud Crokes, a lot of our senior players sort of volunteered to help with getting messages out to the local community, with delivering pharmacy goods or whatever. They signed up to a couple of schemes that were going, and the feedback from that was really positive, and it was beneficiaries all around. The players felt good about doing it. The people who got the deliveries obviously benefited from it, and it was just something that happened because of lockdown. But it just again showed, I suppose, the values and the behaviours of the GAA club, and I suppose the positivity in that. Again, positive imagery, if it's a safe, especially for parents bringing kids that maybe weren't involved before, and you're bringing them down for the first time, once they know that it's a safe environment, they're much more likely to obviously bring their child down and get involved themselves. So making sure that the child safeguarding, the Garda vetting, all that is top notch, and that the environment that the kids are brought down into is a safe environment. So, for instance, when we're with the youngest group in the nursery, we have a small training area and all-weather pitch which holds about 100 kids, but it's fenced around, and there's only one exit gate and one entrance gate, and the kids can't leave or they can't wander off because someone is on gate duty, and the child can only leave at the end of the session if the parent is there to take them away. So having that as a safety net is again a good image, and an image that parents and families trust. Having a club plan, again, a lot of clubs have gone into big efforts over the years and doing strategic plans, and the idea of a strategic plan is just a good way to organise yourself and make best use of your resources and your people resources as well, and it gives a club a direction going forward in terms of what work has to be done and who's going to do the work. Approaching new volunteers and providing a role description. Again, you have to be specific about what you're asking them to do, especially if they're not known, or they're new to the area. Matching people to roles with their club, with their own sort of personal and work related skills. So if you're trying to set up a website and somebody in the community has IT skills, asking them to give an hour or two a week to help set that up is matching people to the role. And being specific about the time. The big fear people have, as we've already mentioned, is getting landed with something and the workload exploding and not knowing when it's ever going to end. So being very specific is important. And then this idea of the unit of voluntary commitment, we talk about a 1 hour commitment. So if you're doing a big recruitment drive and you're looking for new people to get involved, new coaches or new volunteers to help out with the committees and that, by going to them originally and asking them just for 1 hour, you have a far better chance of getting that commitment. And then over time, if they start to enjoy it and they start to feel part of it, that 1 hour will go to 2 hours, will go to 3 hours, will go to 5, will go to 10. But it all starts with just 1 hour. So when we look at the 1 hour commitment, it could be anything as simple as selling lotto tickets on a Sunday evening. It could be coming down to coaching the Saturday morning nursery for an hour. It could be washing a set of jerseys each week for one of the teams. It could be putting up the nets before one of the games or putting out the flags before one of the games. It could be updating the website or the social media a couple of times a week. Or it could be assisting in the club shop. There's all those little jobs around the club that have to be done that maybe will only take 1 hour per person or of a person's commitment each week. So if 20 new people volunteered for 1 hour per week, that's 20 hours of work that a few people were doing. If that doubled up and they volunteered 2 hours a week, that's a 40-hour week's worth of work. So that's one person working full time in your club by getting 20 people committing 2 hours. Okay, so you have volunteers, you got them on board. How do you keep volunteers on board? So a couple of reasons why people stay on board. That they feel valued, that people appreciate them, and that they're adding value to the club or the community. That they feel their contribution is respected, that they feel part of the bigger group. Again, tapping into that human instinct about wanting to belong, about wanting to be part of a bigger thing than just themselves, or sorry, contributing to a bigger thing. And then they feel a sense of pride that they have contributed. So looking back on say something like a juvenile blitz that you've asked some of the parents to get involved with and run, and takes a few weeks lead in time, and you're asking other clubs or you're asking clubs from outside the county to come and visit and play in your tournament, and a lot of preparation in terms of fixtures and pitches, and even feeding the teams that are coming to visit and making sure that they go away with happy memories. There's a great sense of pride once those little sort of initiatives or tournaments are completed. And in Crokes, we would sort of run invitational blitzes each year in hurling and football with the boys, anywhere from under 8 up as far as under 12. And we'd invite up to 10 clubs to come and visit. So the under 8s would host it in UCD, and there'd be 10 visiting clubs, and we'd split our under 8 age group up into 10 teams, and you'd have 10 pitches set up. Then you'd get a couple of pitches down in UCD, which we've used on a number of times. And a lot of work goes into that, and not only, I suppose, do the kids benefit by playing extra matches and sort of spending 4 or 5 hours down at the blitz and hanging out with each other, but the clubs obviously visiting get a day out and get to make a trip. But what we find then is you get those sort of visits reciprocated, and you get a chance to bring your own club down to visit a couple of those clubs later on or throughout the year. And those trips away are great for bonding and bringing a team and an age group together. The most important phrases in a club. So this is keeping people involved, keeping people respected, feeling that their contribution is respected, that they're valued. These are the most important phrases that can be said, that can be heard around a club. First thing is somebody to admit that they were wrong. We all know how rare that is. Telling somebody you did a great job. Asking somebody's opinion. What do you think? Asking somebody, can you help? Can I give a hand? Can I pick up the flags? Can I put out the goals or put the goals away? Or can I pick up the jerseys? Thank you. And we. So those would be the most important phrases you'd hear in the club setting. The least important one is I. Anything that begins with an I can lead to trouble. Okay. Before I move on to sort of talk about some of the specific stuff around sort of player recruitment in Kilmacud, just 10 top tips for recruiting and retaining volunteers. So people are waiting to be asked, so ask them. Women and older people are the most willing volunteers to involve them. Think beyond the inner circle. So this is always one that sometimes clubs can get very cliquey, and they sort of keep it among a group of people, and they're afraid to widen the net or bring other people in. So again, think about that. Think about bringing new people, fresh skills. I suppose one of the things in the nursery each year in Crokes, when we're getting it up and running, you never know what skill set is going to walk in the gate with the next child. And it could be, as I said, you could have a website that you want to develop, and you could have somebody walking in the gate with an IT speciality, or you could have part of the nurseries is doing the athletic development or the fundamental movement skills. You could have somebody walking in the gate who's a background in athletics, and they're able to help and bring that through. So unless we're open to involving new people, we could be sort of turning a blind eye to some of these skills that could be very beneficial to us. So link tasks with the available skills, and as I said, use that wisely. Begin with agreed volunteer commitments. So this idea of 1 hour, can you give us 1 hour a week? Give affirmation, so praise and reward and a thank you. Use your database to recruit and inform. So getting your communication channels up and running and telling stories and telling positive stories and letting people know what's going on in the club and what all the good stuff that's happening.
Parry.
Yes, Hugh.
Just a question there when you said that about the other people from the community with different skills that they have, but you as a club, how would you know that the people have those skills? Would you be sending out some sort of a circle or looking for people's skills? Or
yeah, so with the nursery, with the new parents coming in, so we'll say this year the up to 2016 kids will be brought in hopefully post summer, and we'll set up an online Microsoft Forms and we'll send that out, or there'll be a link to that on the website. And we just ask a few bits of general information on that form, obviously the child's details and date of birth. And we ask, has the parent any previous, we ask the parent, would they volunteer? So we give them a list of tasks that they can volunteer for. Right. So we make it clear that it is a voluntary organisation, that we're, I suppose, from my role as a full-time coach, my job is to help set it up, but it's going to be the parents who run that and take that on. So we're asking for people to volunteer for the different roles, whether it be coaching or admin or COVID supervisor or safety or doing the weekly communications and the emails. So you get people sort of ticking the boxes on that. We ask them for a little bit of their background. Do they have GAA coaching experience? Not that it's important. We ask them, do they have experience or any other skill sets that might be useful? And it's a useful tool to sort of get a picture of the group that's coming in.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Mark.
All right. And then sort of have plans for recently retired players and coaches. The mantra of the GAA is to play and stay with the GAA. Again, it's a big ask. I suppose one of the things, I come from Castleblaney and Monaghan, and one thing that is still sort of a common trait, and I'm sure it's a common trait to a lot of clubs in Wicklow, would be that the underage teams are managed by sort of ex-players or current players, or certainly recently retired players, that they would come back and somebody would take the under 13 team and somebody would take the under 15 team and somebody would take the under 11 team. In Crokes, I'm sure a lot of Dublin clubs, it's slightly different. We don't get that many ex-players back down involved with the underage. It's nearly always 95% of the time led by parents. So what do we do with sort of the recently retired players, or just the current players or recently retired coaches? Rather than asking them to come down and get involved with a team and giving up a commitment of 2 or 3 nights a week and staying with that team, we ask them down and maybe do, it could be a defender who has a sort of an ambition to become a coach, and we ask them to come down and do a defensive session with the under 13s, or somebody come down and do a free taking session, or a midfielder to come down and take a midfield session with the under 15s. So it's giving them that idea again, the 1 hour commitment. Would you come down? Would you get involved? Would you take a session this week and maybe come back in a couple of weeks and go with another team? And then I'm not sure if people are aware, but there's a President's Award that the GAA give out to volunteers. So it could be a good way of sort of trying to recognise the people who have given great service to your club, give them a bit of recognition and sort of nominate them for this President's Award. I've seen a couple of people in Kilmacud get them over the years, and it's a great source of pride and it's a great source of acknowledgement, and it's sort of that the whole family can celebrate with that person that they've given great service to their local GAA club. Okay, I'm going to work on through now some of the Crokes examples and some of the things that have worked in my time. I suppose what we do in Crokes, we've a player pathway that's broken down into 5 distinct sort of phases, and it's sort of our technical plan or our technical framework, and that each of these 5 distinct phases, beginning from the nursery, so when the kids come in at 5 and 6 and 7, all the way through then to go games, into the Féile phase, Féile for just for want of a better term, sort of under 13, 14 and 15, we call it the Féile phase, into the minor phase, which is 16 and minor, and then into adult. So each of those phases then has their own guiding principles and philosophies, and it's all based then on the technical skills, your tactical awareness, it's mental fitness, it's physical fitness, and it's sort of lifestyle awareness. So let's look at the first part of that then, which is the nursery phase. And we've already mentioned a couple of bits and pieces. I cannot overstate the importance of the nursery and how sort of crucial it's been in as part of the Dublin success, the Dublin GAA success in the last 10, 15 years. I think most of the big clubs would have got their nurseries organised in that time. And that has been sort of, if we talk about a big sort of base on the triangle in terms of recruitment and big numbers coming in, and the stronger your base, the stronger your foundation, or the wider it is, the more kids you're able to sort of funnel up the way. And you're probably more kids that you're able to hold on to. So the nursery played a huge part in that. Again, the nursery links in with the local primary schools in terms of some of the work that the full-time coaches do. So, as I said, the wide base of the pyramid, it's in Kilmacud. We changed there a number of years ago in terms of the way the membership works. It's actually a parent and child join as a member. It used to be you were able to sign your child up for the membership, and you were able to drop and where you go and shop. But big emphasis put on the child and parent joining together so that the family sort of felt as part of the club. And, you know, if you have 2 or 3 kids coming after, you turn that into family membership and so on. So all of a sudden you have family members of the club and everybody feels a part of it. We have been successful, I think, over the last number of years in getting people to join and getting coaches to join and getting parents to join. On average, we're probably talking about somewhere between 100 and 120 kids and the boys joining. And it's a combined nursery, which is the first thing, which is more child friendly than having 2 separate nurseries. So we've a combined nursery. And in the first year and a half, it's really the very basics of Gaelic football and hurling. It's not even, it's more sort of basic sports skills. It's fundamental movement skills. And that's the big emphasis. But because we make such a big sort of push to get people involved and to get parents involved, we actually end up with maybe 120 kids and about 50 parents willing to volunteer and get involved. So you're talking anywhere from a 1 to 2 to 1 to 3 kid or child to parent coaching ratio. And when you think about, you know, safeguarding, and the law says it has to be 1 to 8 at a minimum, when you get it down to 1 to 2, 1 to 3, I think it's a great sort of sign. And the beauty about having that type of ratio is that, you know, you have more time, you have more coaches who are able to take some of the weaker kids, maybe give them a little bit more time, give them 2 or 3 minutes one-to-one coaching, help them with a skill they might be struggling with, and then put them back into activity. So crucial, or key to this nursery and key to getting kids now at under 6 and under 7 and that big wide base of the pyramid would be our club school link. And by and large, myself and my colleague, there's 2 of us in Kilmacud Crokes. Niall Corcoran looks after mainly hurling and camogie, and I look after football and ladies football, but we obviously combine across a lot of the different areas, coach education and nurseries and summer camps and mini All-Irelands and all that. We would mainly concentrate coaching in senior infants and first class. We wouldn't coach anything above 3rd class. And the reason for that, it's probably a strategic decision that we made a few years ago, would be because it correlates so closely with our nursery, that if we put a bit of effort in there, if we go out and we showcase the games and we give the kids a chance to play the games, and then sort of make them aware where their local club is and facilitate maybe them coming up and joining the nursery, that once you get them in at senior infants and first class, from a school's point of view and from a coming to one school point of view, by the time they get to 5th class and 6th class, they've already done 4 or 5 years in their local GAA club. And they're at a level where it's a lot easier than just to get a coming to one school team set up and a school team. So we do have sort of a lot of the groundwork for the teachers that sort of support it later on by taking out a school team. So, you know, we found that those ages are the ages where kids are sampling all the different sports. And we talk about a 3-2-1 multi-sport development model, where in primary school, the research and the sports scientists would tell you that you should be playing 3-4 different sports. That in early secondary school, you might sort of bring it down to 2 sports, and only in sort of, if you want to specialise, that Gaelic games is a late specialisation sport. So yeah, really, if you want to specialise, there's time in doing that at 15, 16, 17, 18. So down at this time where they're sampling different sports, it's up to us to go in, showcase Gaelic games, showcase Kilmacud Crokes, attract the kids up to the nursery, get their parents in to help them, and get them members of the club, and the whole thing grows from that. Having open days and fun days and blitzes and so on would be another way clubs could do to organise that, and thinking about some of the inclusion and diversity stuff. Clubs I've seen in Dublin have sort of an inclusion day they might be based in a community where there's a particularly strong sort of ethnicity. There's a group of people from the same sort of background, and by having an inclusion day or having a diversity day where you're making a big effort for that community, you're putting signs up in their language, you're putting a leaflet drop, you're inviting them down to come down and see the club, and I've seen that work successfully in different areas. A blitz like a mini All-Ireland, we would run a tournament called the Mini All-Ireland in June every year, and it's sort of an internal, like a mini league that used to be run in a lot of clubs, but we would have a week for football, a week for hurling, a week for camogie, a week for ladies football, and all the kids from under 6 to under 12 would come down and play in the club across a week. So starting on a Monday and you finish with the finals on a Friday, from 4:30 in the day to 8 o'clock at night. There's loads of games going on at the different age groups. And that's been probably one of the most successful initiatives that we've done over the last 20 years. And it's the one that sort of parents and families keep reporting back as being the one time of the year that sort of resonates or makes the biggest impact with them. And I still have kids who are kids. When I say kids, I still have players, some of the senior footballers would still come to me and sort of with memories of playing in the Mini All-Irelands as an under-9 and losing a penalty shootout in one of the finals, and marking that down as one of the most disappointing days in the GAA jersey. So stuff like that, it does create memories, and those memories are positive memories, and it's something that attracts kids and sort of can help keep a kid involved. The last one on sort of nurseries and the pathway, and sort of going to turn a bit serious now. And I'm not sure if you've heard of the Moving Well Being Well project that was launched there last week by the GAA. It's based around fundamental movement skills and the development of these skills in underage players. And I think, we're talking about some of the stuff that, might be nice for a family or a child to know about your club and what's on offer. I think what I'm going to talk about now in the next slide is stuff that they have to know, that this is nearly life and death stuff now that we're talking about. I don't know if you can see that. That's, back in the 60s and 70s, the picture of the mother dragging the child back in, maybe for dinner in the evening after being outside for 6 or 7 hours. When you sort of look at the picture of this year or last year or in a normal year, it's now the parent dragging the child out away from a device, getting them out into fresh air, and hoping that they go outside and play. So I think we're all aware of social media and devices and playing computer games and all that, and life has changed and times have changed. The problem with that, or one of the problems with that, is a lot of the kids don't spend enough time outside playing, and they don't develop what we call fundamental movement skills, or the basic skills of running and jumping, climbing, falling, tripping, hopping, skipping. And that leads on to a couple of problems. One of the big problems is the obesity epidemic in Ireland, and a couple of the stats that came out of this Moving Well Being Well project, which was run in DCU. 1 in 4 children in Ireland are overweight or obese, and that Ireland is on target to be the most obese nation in Europe by 2030. So these studies came, and some of those stats came from a project called Moving Well Being Well. And it was run through DCU in conjunction with Dublin GAA and the GAA in Croke Park. And it was actually a guy who was an ex-GPO in Dublin, Stephen Behan from the FINA, who did this as part of his PhD. So he's actually qualified. He one of the quickest PhDs, I think, at DCU on the back of this work, that in about 2.5 years he ended up with his doctorate. So it's Dr. Stephen Behan now. And basically what they did was they went around the country, 2,000 primary school kids in a range of different schools, and they tested their fundamental movement skills. So, all the basic sports skills: catching, throwing, kicking, running, jumping, hopping, skipping, balance, basic strength, standing long jump, standing high jump. There's a whole list of about 12 different skills, and they tested the kids in these skills. And some of the stats that came back were startling. That 1 in 4 kids cannot kick a ball properly. That 1 in 2 cannot kick a ball properly. 1 in 4 kids cannot run properly. Less than 1 in 5 can throw a ball. Just 11% mastered those fundamental. These are skills that you need to have mastered by the age of 5, 6, 7 before you put the sport-specific skills in on top of them. And just 11% of the kids had those skills mastered by the age of 6. Just 17% of school children engaged in the recommended 1 hour per day of moderate to vigorous exercises. So this is a big time bomb. This is a problem coming down the line for us, that if kids don't have these fundamental movement skills, by the time we get them at 6 and 7 and 8 and start trying to teach the skills of football or ladies football or camogie or football, they don't have the fundament, they don't have the foundation to be able to reach their full potential. And that's the problem. So there is a new resource set up through the GAA. It's linked in with nursery, the nursery age group kids. It gives you ideas on how you can develop those skills. It gives you tests on how you can test your kids to see what level they're at and what they need to work on. And Stephen Behan's quote then, when it was launched last week, was, "There's a lot of attention on childhood obesity and low participation rates in sport. A focus on the fundamental movement skills in young children could be the key to tackling both." So we get the kids, and if they can develop these skills, it's not only going to give them a competence, it's going to give them the skills to partake in sport, but it's also going to give them a confidence. A big part sometimes of kids not playing sport or not wanting to go and join the local club is that they don't have the confidence, because they know they don't have the competence, that they don't have the skills. And then there's a reluctance and a difficulty to get them involved. So that's some of the programs. It's linked into the GAA website. You just click on those different buttons and it gives you ideas to develop the vertical jump or the horizontal jump or your hop or your balance or your skip. All these fundamental movement skills that are so important for kids to then start learning different sports skills on top of that. If the current generation of children can't throw and catch in basic situations, why would they choose to play if they aren't any good at it? So this idea that, it's not fun, they won't play it. If they're not able to do it, they won't get any fun, any enjoyment out of it. So by developing the confidence and competence for our children, then they won't stop playing, and that's what you want. Children that play for as long as possible every day of the year. So again, the guidelines is 1 hour moderate to vigorous exercise every day for children is the guideline. So that's the important part of getting kids involved in sport. This is the message I think sometimes we have to get out to parents, that not only are we doing this for selfish reasons, we're developing clubs and we want to see our clubs and our communities grow for selfish reasons, but we also want to do it for these sort of external reasons now, because we know it's good for children coming through and we know it's important. And we know that it's going to be vital in terms of their lifelong involvement in sport and their competence and their confidence in getting involved. This is a slide that we got from UCD or DCU as part of that study, but it's an American one. It just shows that, having children physically active from a young age just leads to good results all the way through adolescence into adulthood, and even back to then when they start their own families. You can see there that active parents are associated with having active kids, or kids of active moms are twice more likely to be active. So this is a generational thing that, if we can start bringing in this love of sport and this sort of confidence in the ability to play and participate, it's gonna lead into good results further down the line. Okay, so the Go Games phase. So we've left the nursery and we're up into the Go Games phase now, which is under 9 to under 12. And some of the things that have worked in certainly Crokes and some of the other Dublin clubs would be, again, this primary school link and having a GPO. Again, we said we wouldn't coach much above second class, but we would sometimes do after school coaching and sort of help out with school teams if needed. Cool camps and summer camps and other events outside of school is a great way of sort of recruiting kids into your club. Again, linking back into the multi-sport development. So this idea that kids have to specialise, there's only a very few sports that kids have to specialise in primary school years, and most of the field sports are not those sports. So it's okay to play 2, 3, 4 different sports when you're in primary school, and that's what should be the norm. Back to our mini All-Irelands, and again, mini All-Irelands right up to under 12, we have teams. What we do in Crokes and the mini All-Irelands, then when the kids graduate out of that and they go to under 13, under 14, they come back and manage in the mini All-Ireland. So all the teams at under 7, under 8, under 9 would have managers who are 13, 14, 15-year-olds. And again, they get a big kick out of that, and it's a way of keeping them involved and sort of connected to it. And then our referees come from our 16 and minor teams. So it's actually, the mini All-Irelands encompass all the ages from 5 right up to 18. And obviously huge numbers, as you can imagine. Big numbers. So what's the benefit in having bigger numbers coming into your club? Well, obviously you're developing a more vibrant club and bigger numbers, but there's another crucial factor which can't be underestimated, which would be sort of, recognizing that some kids are early developers and some kids are late developers. And the early developers are fine, up to a point. There comes a time when, you have to really sort of make sure that they're developing the skills, that they're not just relying on maybe their physical strengths or their size or their speed that's got them through it so far, that if they don't develop the other areas, their decision making, their skills on both sides of the body, when everybody does catch up, and everybody will catch up physically, they could get left behind. But the problem with having late developers, or one of the things you have to be wary of, is making sure that they get enough game time to actually develop at their own rate, that they're allowed to develop at their own rate. And the problem with having small numbers is that if, let's say, when you get to under 13 and you only have one team, even though it could be 11 aside, 12 aside, 13 aside, if you've only one team and you might have excess numbers, you might have 4 or 5 subs each week. The weak kids, the kids who are maybe those late developers, are not getting meaningful game time, and they're not getting a chance to develop. They're not getting a chance to play the game, which means they're not getting a chance to enjoy the game. And that's only going to end up one way. That's going to end up with them leaving and walking away from the sport. By stretching it and having 2 teams, and maybe a team at one division and a team at a lower division. And I know, maybe Wicklow, you get a chance of combining age groups. It could be an under 12 group playing with an under 13 team. Having as many teams and having teams at different levels of ability, so a Division 1 team, a Division 4 team, or Division 7 team, gives a chance for kids to develop at their own rate, and gives those late developers a chance to get meaningful game time, to get on the pitch, to learn the game in their own time. Mightn't be as fast as some of the early developers, but they will come through with that sort of coaching and with that sort of work, and with them gaining that confidence and competence, they will come through. So by playing the game, by getting involved, by not being left on the sideline every week, you have a far greater chance of increasing enjoyment and increasing confidence. And that comes back then to your club coaching philosophy and the environment you set. And having a good environment, having a good philosophy will be attractive to parents and kids coming into your club from the outside. One of the things that's been successful in Crokes is sort of parent information evening. So would say as a group is joining the nursery, we'd hold an information evening. And one of the things that I suppose has worked during the lockdown would be the use of this technology for webinars and so on, and it's something that probably will stand the test of time as we exit it. And that, if you wanted to run a parent information evening, you don't have to drag everybody down to the clubhouse. You can do it. They can do it without leaving the comfort of their own home, and both parents can sit in on it. One parent has to stay at home and babysit, and the other parent has to go. Both parents can tune into this. So we would do a couple of 2 or 3 sort of information evenings as the kids go through the pathway. So one maybe as they come into the nursery and just introduce the club and introduce the philosophy of the club and what it's about and what's ahead of the kids and what the plan is, and player pathway in terms of the technical plan that we're going to use, and some of the stuff that's available for parents if they want to upskill themselves as coaches. We'd probably do another information evening as the kids exit nursery and go into Go games, and just to explain what Go games are and how the teams are picked and the age groups are picked and so on. And then there's another information evening which is coming at under 11 going into under 12 when streaming comes in, and you want to explain why streaming is used and the importance of it and the benefits of it and the rationale and how what your policy is for picking teams. And then, you know, when you leave Go games and go into 13 or go into under 13, under 14, under 15, what's ahead of them. So you're sort of mapping out the pathway for them, and it's an opportunity for you to get to know them, for them to get to know you, and to ask questions. And, you know, you can talk about other stuff like fundraising or other ways they can contribute. Some parents maybe just don't have the time, or, you know, have other kids and are not able to commit to coaching at that age group, but they're able to contribute in another way. So when we go in then to under 13, 14, 15 and into under 16 and minor, what are the other ways we can attract new members or players to our teams? Again, having a strong secondary school link. And one of the things that has worked for us over the years is certainly having a very strong transition year coaching program. And I know the GAA have a future leaders program. We still call ours our TY coaching program, where we get anything up to 50 transition year students. We do it in two groups, one in September, one in February. They come in, do a coaching course, and then they go as part of their sort of work experience and getting their coaching experience. They go and coach in the nursery on a Saturday morning, or they help with the school's coaching program, and they go around with Niall and myself. We go around the schools. And then if they do well and they enjoy it, you know, by the time summer camps come around, they get a chance to get jobs and get a bit of experience coaching on our summer camps and get paid for it, which is the big bonus for them. But again, it's proved very, very successful, and it's really across all the different spectrum of players, from the strong players to maybe some of the very weak players to some of the really late developers. This is another sort of avenue that they can get involved in your club, and who knows, there could be a future chairman, there could be a future treasurer, there could be a future secretary who get their first taste of sort of working in the club in a voluntary capacity as part of the TY program. So attracting kids who maybe at that end of the spectrum, where sort of the high performers or have ambitions to go play at a high level or play with the county, using the county development squads as a recruiting tool is something that certainly in our area, we have a big competition with soccer and big competition with rugby. And when some of our kids make development squads with Dublin hurling squads or Dublin football squads, it's been proven to be a very good sort of tool to sort of hang on to them. Sort of between fail and development squads, using that when you go up against Junior Cup rugby or you go up against Kennedy Cup soccer, and that it's just we use it sort of as a tool to sort of try and keep kids engaged and keep them involved with the club, and it has proved successful in the past. Again, the multi-sport development, that they're still, you know, as I said, it's only, you know, 15, 16, 17 if they really want to specialize in their chosen sport, that the research out there shows that's you know, that's plenty of time. We've used the fail in the minor competition. Not the underage, our philosophy, it's all about development, but in development you can still have winning. You just, you know, it's not one or the other. It's about having the correct balance between development and winning. And so we use fail as a motivating tool. Kids love fail. They love getting all the gear. They love sort of competing, even though it's changing now and it's going away from a blitz weekend into a more structured league sort of, and it's gone to under 15. So we might just have to reassess that. But up to now, it's been sort of seen as just a weekend blitz, and it was good. You know, it was okay to go out and try and win it. But the rest of the league and the rest of under 14 was seen as development. So having your philosophy, you know, married to your values and married to some of the key principles is important. And then athletic development and strength and conditioning. You know, the modern adolescent is very much into developing themselves, you know, and working out and training, and they can see a lot of role models and stuff as this athletic, this strength and conditioning sort of background. So I think it's important sometimes, if clubs want to hold on to kids at that they offer this to them, or that they in some way sort of tick these boxes where you know, if they're training at 16 on minor level, that there's an athletic development pathway for them there, and that they can you know, sort of mirror what kids are doing in other clubs or other sports. And again, you know, it comes back to good coaching, the ability to hold on to kids. Once you get them in the club, you have to hold on to them, and you do that by offering good coaching and good coaching sessions and good age groups. So putting a bit of time into your community of coaches and coaching committees, and developing and upskilling your coaches, and bringing in guest coaches or guest tutors, or making sure enough of your coaches go through the foundation course and award one, that this community of coaches is sort of self-sustaining and vibrant, and sort of pushing the standards and keeping the standards high. And then having ex-players and senior players involved in your coaching. And again, they don't have to take a team over if they can't give that commitment. This idea of 1 hour a week coming down and maybe giving, or 1 hour a fortnight or 1 hour a month coming down and doing a specific session and helping out some of the age groups. Okay, I think that's very close to the end now. Just a couple of session recap on the session objectives. So by the end of the session, we said we'd have a definition of volunteering and how important volunteering is. We'll examine the role of volunteers in the club setting. We'll look at the reason why people volunteer and why they don't. We'll look at strategies on how clubs can attract volunteers and hold on to them. We will look at the different phases on the pathway and examine what clubs can do to attract new members. And just to remember the 3 R's, recruit, retain, and respect. Some of the resources that are out there, that I've got some of the material that I used tonight, and these can all be found on some of the GAA websites and the LGFA websites. There's a volunteer recruitment toolkit on the GAA website. There's a document there on empowering your club through volunteerism. There's another document on volunteer recruitment. On the LGFA website, there's a document there on volunteer recruitment and retention toolbox. And then there's a website for Volunteer Ireland with lots of ideas and lots of different resources that you can use in terms of attracting volunteers and holding on to them. That's me, Hugh, if there's any questions or if anybody wants to ask anything.
Okay, thanks very much for that presentation, Pádraig. I know you put a good bit of time into preparing that, and also, lads, if there's anyone on the call here that has any questions for Pádraig, kind of based around his numbers and recruiting around his kind of work in Kilmacud Crokes and that as regards retaining and volunteering, just put them in there and I'll direct them to him. Here's one from Kiltegan there, Pádraig. In working with the school link to enable a GPO, GDA to work in the school, it's gone up there now, there's not more coming in, to work in the school, would you have any advice in getting buy-in from schools where there may not be high interest levels among teachers in Gaelic games?
Yeah, I think I mentioned, I think it's a serious situation that, you know, that if our kids aren't getting quality coaching or quality sport experience at a young age and developing some of these fundamental movement skills and developing basic sport, no matter what their sport of choice will be down the line, there's a lot of this fundamental movement stuff is crucial to all sports. So, you know, if they have maybe a bias against the GAA or something like that, I think you can come at it from an angle that this is not necessarily a GAA thing, that this is sort of child development or athlete development or player development, and it's going to stand to them long term, and all you're going to do is go in and try and give them a positive sort of start in sport and a positive experience in sport, in the hope that they have a lifelong involvement in sport.
Yeah, thanks for that. Robert McHugh has one here. How important is equal game time for all kids, irrespective of ability, in a competitive environment where some coaches place an emphasis on winning, even though it's detrimental to retaining players? Should you have a policy on this or a club philosophy to develop kids as a primary objective?
Again, it comes back then to having, you know, an overall club philosophy, or certainly an underage philosophy. Like, what is important? If winning is important to you, then your behaviours and and stuff will reflect that. If development is important, if retaining children, if developing the individual child, no matter of their ability, is important to you, then your values and behaviours will reflect that in decisions. You know, you'll be faced with decisions every week then in terms of who you play, who you start, and much game time. And if your decisions are based on your values, and your values go back to your philosophy and your beliefs, then decisions are going to be the right decisions. So it's really figuring out, is it more important to win an under 11 competition or an under 13 competition, or keeping all those kids involved, especially the late developers who potentially could be a star senior player. We all know, the All-Stars there, the players of the year last week in the All-Stars, Gerard Hegarty and Brian Fenton, didn't play County Minor, which, lends itself that they were late developers in terms of the inter-county scene. So take that back to a club scene. You, by leaving, or by a coach, by not playing a child and leaving them on the bench week in, week out, and just playing the same team week in, week out, that child is going to fall away and is going to drift away. And that child could be a potential senior footballer because they're a late developer.
Here's another question from a fellow Dub and a fellow Cola man. He's working in Wicklow now. Kevin Spain. How do schools respond to club recruitment of young players, leaflet drops, etc.? What's the kind of the feedback and benefit you get from that, or is it worthwhile?
Yeah, I suppose I'm working in Crokes now about 20 years. So over that time, we built up very strong relationships. And in some of the schools, I've seen, maybe they're on their third principal at this stage, but it's going in, and it's, probably the schools we picked at the very start were probably schools that had a traditional sort of GAA ethos, because maybe the principal, had that ethos and was fully supportive, and we just went in and we built the relationship and we maintained the relationship. To be honest, we don't do any leaflet drops anymore. I suppose it's now got the stage that the nursery is so successful that there's nearly a waiting list to get in it. When we open up the membership, we open up that online form to collect it, it's nearly full in a few days, without advertising it, without sort of putting leaflets around school. I found that the best recruiting tool over the years has been the mothers at the school gate dropping the kids off or picking the kids up, and all the mothers of the 5 and 6 year olds talking about what sport is Johnny getting involved in, or where are you bringing them, and having sort of the mammies speaking highly of the experience of coming down and joining the nursery. And it's a safe environment, it's a fun environment, the kids enjoyed themselves, they wanted to go back the next week. That's probably the best recruiting tool that we've ever had.
Okay. Is there any more questions there, lads? If there's not any more questions, I think we'll say thanks to Pádraig for his contribution.
Yeah, sorry, I've a question. I'm not able to put it in the chat. I've been disabled for some reason. I just was wondering about encouraging female coaches. How do you do that? Because I'm in Kilmac Club and there's very few women coaching, and I'm wondering about that. I know women are great at volunteering. I mean, clubs wouldn't run without women, but how do we get them coaching? Because I'm one of the few.
Fair play to you. And I think there's a lot of research out there to show that having a female coach at those formative years is a very positive experience, especially for young boys. And it's something we have pushed over the years, is to try and get as many females involved as possible. And some years have been better than other years. I think if 2 or 3 mums get involved, the likelihood that more of them will join is what I found in the past. But it is something that we do push and that we do recognise, and that we try and work every year. In fact, the new juvenile vice chair is one of the mammies this year. I think there's a couple of mammies on the juvenile committee, but the vice chair is a mum who joined a couple of years ago at the nursery and got involved, and then obviously put her hand up to say that she'd get involved in the juvenile committee. We have a few, but we could have more. We could obviously do better at that, but it's something to be encouraged, and it's something I think a female sort of input into into a nursery age group or an underage age group is important, especially for young boys.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's about it. So, Pádraig, again, on behalf of Wicklow, I'd like to thank you for coming on here tonight and presenting what you presented there, and I hope it'll be of benefit to the people who tuned in there tonight. And we'll put it up on our YouTube channel there. Paul has started one of those about three weeks ago, so we've a lot of information up there at the moment, and we'll put this presentation up along with the live recording as well, so people can look at it as well.
Great.
Thanks very much. Thanks, lads, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pádraig, for that. I don't know if you're still on it or whether you're gone. You're probably gone. Thanks.